I'm very pleased to welcome you to our first video conference for the fall term. Thank you, Ambassador Kamal, for hosting this, and we thank Dr. Victor Karunan, who's the Chief of Adolescent Development and Participation at UNICEF headquarters in New York. I would also like to welcome our friends and academic partners at Bronx Community College, Lehigh University, Lock Haven University, Montclair High School, Vancouver. They had to get up at 5:30 in the morning to join us, very courageous. Our Metro campus, and then the students and faculty who are with us on the Florham campus. Ambassador Kamal, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. The problems of youth are not easy to resolve because the United Nations is short of a number of things, the shortcomings, the most important of which was women. Half of the world's population is women, but it has taken 60 years for the United Nations to establish a department in charge of women, and that is the new initiative taken at the UN of UN Women, headed by the former president of Chile. But the same is true of youth. Half or more than half of the population is youth, but somehow they don't have too much of a say in the United Nations system. In fact, when we did an analysis of the age structure of the staff of the United Nations Secretariat, we found that less than 5% were below the age of 35. I repeat, less than 5% below the age of 35. Now this makes no sense. Firstly, more than half of the population of the world is youth. Secondly, the most productive period in human intellect is between the ages of 20 and 30. That is when great things have been done in the world. Cleopatra was 18. Joan of Arc was 18. Alexander was 26. Chopin was 27. And so in politics or in military affairs or in other artistic activities, the most productive period of human life is during the 20s. And this has to be recognized by all of us. But somehow, the older ones among us have a vested interest in keeping youth at bay because they are smarter than us and therefore we are scared of them and don't want them to come too close. And that is a pity. And so I am delighted to have Mr. Karunan with us today because he heads the Department of Youth at UNICEF. And I want to ask him 2 or 3 questions. The first is, since when did UNICEF become interested in youth? I thought UNICEF was always dealing with children below the age of 15. And how did suddenly UNICEF realize that people can be older than 15 also? And number 2, what exactly are you doing? What is your output? Not what is your plan, but what is your output in terms of youth? What are you doing? And how are you convincing us at the United Nations that youth is important? You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador Kamal. Firstly, it's popular notion that the UNICEF represents and works for children, and children are often interpreted as only those below 5 years of age, because that's the general image and picture that the public has about what UNICEF represents. It's important to underline the fact that the mandate of UNICEF is drawn from the Convention on Rights of the Child, which was adopted by General Assembly in November 1989. So 21 years of work following the Convention on the Rights of the Child. UNICEF's mandate has been for children under the age of 18 years of age. So although the public perception of UNICEF's work is of the young child, the very few people understand that the mandate of UNICEF also goes beyond the young child, that is adolescents. Adolescents, as defined by the UN, as those in the age group of 10 to 19, form a large majority of the population of countries in the world. More than half of the population of many countries in Asia, in Africa, In others, more than 2/3 of the population is below 24 years of age. So that's part of the mandate of UNICEF, is to work for all children under 18 years of age. That is what we want to be held accountable to. Not just the survival and development of the young child, but also the survival, development, and the empowerment of young people, the adolescents in particular, up to the age of 18. What have we done? We've been able to show in our work, and I take a few examples, in the work related to HIV/AIDS, we've been able to target vulnerable adolescents and young people, giving them the information needed about sexual behavior, about risk behavior, about the harmful effects of drugs on them, and having unsafe sex, for example. We have had programs which have targeted young women, adolescent girls, in terms of making them more aware of the dangers of transmission of HIV/AIDS in developing countries. The outputs that we have been able to achieve through that work is, first of all, more and more young people, and data has shown that in many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, there's been a large reduction of transmission of HIV/AIDS, particularly among the adolescents and young people, because they're better informed, they are able to prevent risk from drugs or from unsafe sexual practices. They're able to share that information with their partners, with their peers and others. So there's been some very concrete input and output from the work that we've done with young people in HIV/AIDS. Another example is the output that we've had in terms of dealing with trafficking and violence against children and young people in schools, on the street, and in the home. This is a program that cuts across many regions of the world, where young people have both been advocates to be able to advocate for prevention of violence against girls in particular, but also boys, have been advocates in campaigning against the trafficking of young children across borders within the country, and through migration that happens in many parts of the world, particularly in Asia and Western Africa. So there's been very concrete outputs there in, first of all, governments instituting laws that prevent trafficking and are able to bring the traffickers and other agents to justice. Secondly, young people themselves who have been rescued from brothels, from being trafficked, have been able to develop opportunities for better livelihoods, to come back into the mainstream and to be able to participate and to support their families. So a number of concrete outputs there, also in the area of work related to trafficking and young people. The third example is in relation to child participation and empowerment. This has been a major push of UNICEF over the last 20 years, is to enhance the capacity of adolescents and young people to meaningfully participate, to get their voices heard, to be part of discussions and dialogue and debates that happen at the national level, at the global level, and in their own communities, and to be able to positively contribute to society's development. The general impression, again, is young people, as portrayed by the media and as viewed by elders, by adults, is that young people are problems. Young people need to be guided. Young people need to be supported in making decisions. Very few adults realize the fact that young people have ideas that can positively contribute to family, community, and to society's development. So UNICEF has had a number of programs where we worked with youth organizations and networks. We worked with NGOs, civil society organizations, to build the capacity of young people to be better advocates and to change the mindset of adults, their parents, teachers in schools, and policymakers towards a positive contribution of adolescents and young people. So those are some of the areas where I think we've had a major impact. So UNICEF is increasingly becoming known